So, on to tonight's topic. Before we talk about raising Cain or Abel, I'd like to introduce Don, who'll be presenting this topic this evening. Good evening to you, Don.
Good morning, Wayne, and good evening to everybody else.
Yes, here we are, all good. And tonight, we are talking about one of the most important aspects of family life, of course, which is raising children. As pointed out in our previous session, transmitting values, attitudes, even life itself from one generation to the next is one of the key functions of the family. With that being understood, we also realise that children can turn out to be either agents for good or agents for bad. So tonight, we want to explore the extent to which parents contribute to how or what their children turn out to be. Really, really important one. So Don, I've got some questions to ask you, and here we go. So, are parents responsible in any way for what their children become, whether good or bad?
I guess it's appropriate for us to consider the Cain or Abel concept because, interestingly, those of us who know anything about the Bible know who Cain and Abel were. The first two offspring of any human being, according to the Bible. And then one turned out good and the other turned out bad. And so it begs some questions, which we're not going to go into tonight. But it does say that even from the same parents, you can have both things occurring. Now, the question, though, are parents in any way responsible for what their children become, whether good or bad? Numerous studies have established that the most important factor in the development of a child is parents and family members. So the home you're going in, the parents you're with, and perhaps the siblings and whoever else is in your home, these are the single most contributory factor to what a child becomes. It affects the success, and these are studies we're talking about. The studies have shown that it affects success, values, mental health, and nearly every other aspect of a child's life. It's only fitting then that parents should be held responsible even, and they have a duty to educate and supervise their children. So if their minor child causes harm to another person, for example, the law holds the parents responsible for what a child does. And if it wasn't considered that the parents are responsible for what the child becomes, then the law wouldn't have a right to do that. Parents hold a lot of accountability in the course of rearing their children. They should teach their children what is right and what is wrong and how to teach them. These are different things. We probably won't get to go into all of that tonight, but it's a responsibility that parents have. There is some kind of concept floating around these days that we should just allow children to be themselves, to do what they want to do what makes them happy and makes them comfortable. But no, as parents, we have a responsibility to guide them into what is best for them, because if left to their own imaginations, which aren't very extended nor very experienced, children will invariably end up doing bad things. So the best means of behaving is taught by responsible parents and, of course, other responsible people in society. So generally, that's the main answer to that question. When yes, parents are very largely responsible for what children become.
Thanks for that, Don. And I think at the very least, in part, you've already answered the next question, which is: so is it fair to say then that when children turn out bad, it's because of bad parenting?
It would sound like yes, but it's not always true. While parents play a very major role in what children become, we must recognize that children grow up in a society, and depending on the extent to which they are exposed to other things can have bearing on them. As a matter of fact, as we learn later on, some things may even be in their genes over which the immediate parents may not have control over. But to the extent that the parent is aware of the possibilities, then yes, the parents are responsible. It's not just as easy as that to say they'll always know what's the best thing. We're humans and we make mistakes, and sometimes we just don't know what's the best thing to do. But the effects of bad parenting are far reaching and profound and has many tentacles. Research shows that the role of parents in shaping the future of their children is undeniably crucial. If the parenting style the, the adult chooses is detrimental to the child's development, then the child may suffer lifelong consequences. And so as parents, it's very important that we think not just of today, not just of what the child wants today, not just of making it easier for me as a parent. I won't bother to have the conflicts. We need to think of what is going to become of this child later in life, even when you are no longer parenting the child and may even be gone out of this world. We have to think of the child's well-being. So children raised in an environment that is marked by neglect, and neglect has many faces. Neglect in the sense that the children may be doing what they want, which is not in your view good, but you can't be bothered, so you just allow them to do it. That's neglect too. Or excessive unpredictability or abuse may grow up grappling with issues like low self-confidence, like anxiety, depression, issues of trust, not knowing if they can trust you or they themselves can be trusted. The emotional scars that are inflicted on these children can linger into adulthood and even beyond, even passed on to the next generation. It can affect relationships, decision making, it affects your jobs, it affects your overall mental health. And sometimes we see people which were seemingly quite conscious and sober at some point in life crack and become mentally unstable. And you wonder, how could that have happened? Sometimes it's something from the childhood, something that the parents may not have done the right way. So it's very far reaching, and it's something we ought to consider very seriously as we bring children into the world. One of the things, as we mentioned, low self-confidence. As adults, children that are raised in authoritarian homes, that's where only the adult voices matter and where only the adult voices are correct. Children grow up in that kind of a home, and where punishment is the staple of the child's existence. These children are likely to have a great deal of self discipline, but very little self knowledge, and usually very poor self esteem, since their inner workings were apparently irrelevant to their parents or caregivers. They minimize their own inner lives and maximize what they should do in order to keep pleasing the adult, the parent, or to make sure they're not going to be punished and so on. So they're unstable, they're uncertain about how to live, and they're always trying to please the other person and never able to feel the release of self. So the self-esteem suffers when they're always comparing themselves to what they think they should be doing in order to gain the parent's approval, when in reality that parent may never give them the approval they're seeking. That type of parent hardly ever approves the child. And so it's one of those situations. And I think some of us may know parents like that around us, you know, and I'm not condemning the parents necessarily. They may have come from a similar situation and think that's the way to be a good parent. So it as I said, it has far-reaching tentacles that may be multi-generational in its reach. Then they suffer from anxiety and depression. Um, there is academic impact. These children don't learn well. You know, when parenting is characterized by indifference or lack of support, children may struggle academically. You know, you don't support your child in a lot, you don't make them feel confident. Why did you only get a C? You could have done better. You know, parents like that. Um, and so they never feel like they are achieving anything. You've got to be able to encourage and to cheer and to praise your children for small achievements. And even when you don't see the achievement, they've got to feel like they have the love and the affection and the confidence of their parents. That love and confidence is strong enough for them to do wrong and not be condemned, to make mistakes, to not achieve, and still they are loved and accepted. And these are some of the things, some of the mistakes that other parents make. They think that by driving them academically, they will succeed. And many times what happens is that the parents want to be able to brag about how well my child did. Oh, my child got so many subjects. Oh, my child came first in class, and so on. It's not about the child, it's about you. You want to feel good, you know? And it's just unfortunate that in wanting that, you're achieving the very opposite because you're destroying the child's ability to achieve that. And then some of these children go into self-destructive behaviors. We've heard about them. People cutting their hands, a cycle of self-destructive behavior that may go into adulthood, cycle of dysfunction. Research shows that histories of childhood physical and sexual abuse were highly significant predictors of self-cutting and suicide attempts. During follow-up, the subjects with the most severe histories of separation and neglect and those with past sexual abuse continued being self-destructive. And then, as I mentioned before, all of this has intergenerational impact. The effects of bad parenting are not confined to a single generation. Patterns of dysfunction can be perpetuated through generations. So let's think about it. Let's think that you're not just affecting your child today, but you're affecting your children's children, next generation, and maybe their children too. So grandchildren and great grandchildren may be affected by your poor parenting skills. So it's not just about getting by today. It's very important, very important. And to answer the question, I could say some more on this, but there are other things. But just to answer the question, as you said, it's an extensive topic, Wayne, and there's a lot we can talk about here. But to get to the summary of the question, I would say 90 to 95, maybe 98% of the time, children turn out bad because of poor parenting.
Amazing, Don. The answer to that question really emphasizes the importance of this topic. And I'm so glad we're discussing it this evening because, wow, how far-reaching is it? This parenting role, and amazing. So next question: how do we define a good parent versus a bad parent, and can I know which category I fall into?
Well, I certainly will not be the one to tell anybody whether they're good or bad parents, but we can look at some of the things that may help to define a good or bad parent, and then we can each look at ourselves and use that maybe to improve, and not just for ourselves, but we can help others who are parents. Even if we're not parents, we can help others to become better parents. Because even if you are a good parent now, there's always room for improvement. Now, just to say this, that if we were to try and define what are the hardest jobs in life, parenting would probably fall very close to number one, if not the number one hardest job in life. And yet, it is one of the only jobs, hard though it is, for which you get no real job description, no definition of what you're supposed to do. Nobody, hardly ever anybody tells you these are the things. You don't get a manual, you don't get anything to tell you. You just have a child and you're in the job. Got to do it. And that is one of the things in life that makes it hard. And that's one of the reasons why, if we can become better parents today, because children model what their parents do to a large extent, we can ourselves be training other parents for the next generation and the next and so on. But parenting is always a two-edged sword. I like to think of it as a two-edged sword. On one side, it brings immense joy and gives a sense of totality. Like, I have achieved, I've brought a life into the world. I'm a father or I'm a mother. And I know, as Kerry mentioned earlier on, for women especially, it's a wonderful feeling of being able to bring a new life into the world. Men, not as much, although there are some men who really feel good about being a father, especially when you bring a boy. So there's that side of parenting. You feel great. This is what I've done. Of course, the job only begins there. So on the other hand, raising a child poses a formidable challenge to new and experienced parents alike. It's a great challenge because you don't raise a child in a day. You don't just have a child and your job is done. Your job just begins. And for the next 18 to 20 years, you are raising the child. Some people hang on even longer, and you've got that responsibility all this time. And every day, there's an opportunity. In fact, there are multiple opportunities every day for you to be a good parent or a bad parent. In almost every decision you make regarding that child or those children, it's a decision for better or for worse. Got to think about that. We no longer go ad hoc and willy-nilly and I just feel like. From the minute you bring a life into the world, you've got to think. So there might be no quantifiable way to determine good or bad parents. You can't measure it and say I'm 50% a good parent or I'm 90% a good parent or a bad parent. But it is reasonably safe to say that good parenting is about creating a nurturing and supportive environment while prioritizing connection, empathy, positive discipline, autonomy, effective communication, and self-care. I think I need to repeat those things because just in case we didn't get them. Connection. You've got to teach the child how to connect, and therefore you have to be in a constant connection. This environment must be helping to build networking and connectivity skills for the child. Empathy. This is one of the traits that is more and more lacking in society today. Empathy. Not having empathy towards people in different circumstances, especially when they don't agree with you. We have it right in religion, in the heart of the churches. There are people who become intolerant of others because they have different views. We've got to teach our children empathy, to feel for others who may not be as privileged as they are. Positive discipline. Not just, a lot of people think of discipline, and discipline means if you do wrong, I'm going to discipline you. Do not spare the rod and spoil the child, that kind of discipline, But positive discipline is affirmative also. It is also helping the child to be rewarded for positive actions. Then there's autonomy. You have a right to think. You have a right to an opinion. We can discuss it And I might show you why your opinion may not be the best, but you do have a right to express it. So don't tell the child, shut up and listen to me. A lot of people do that, right? And then effective communication. Okay, you're saying something, I don't quite understand you. Tell me again, or say it another way so I can get you. Effective communication. Today, people don't communicate very well. It's text messaging and all these things, and short answers and so on. We've got to learn to communicate effectively. So if somebody misunderstands something that you said, then have them say it again, try to say it a different way, and listen to the person and have them express again. That's a communication. And of course, self-care. Got to know how to take care of yourself too. So many things I could say there, but um, oh, I don't know if I can say everything here. Unconditional love and support. This is one of the things that good parents should have. Unconditional love and support. And I'm giving these in the order that I think is priority. So the first thing that a good parent should have is unconditional love and support for your children. Who doesn't need love, guidance, support? All of us need it. I'd love to be always having unconditional love and support. I don't know. Everybody likes that. Even when your parents are old and lying on the bed, they want unconditional love and support. So what about children? Yeah, Wayne says he too. What about your children? They need that. And they need it even more than we do. So good parents provide their children with this unconditional love and emotional support. You create an atmosphere where children feel safe, they feel valued, they feel accepted, and an atmosphere that allows them to develop healthy self-esteem and emotional well-being. Number two, clear and consistent boundaries. Clear and consistent boundaries. This is where I see a lot of failure in many parents. The rules of engagement change by the situation or change from day to day. Children get spanked for doing something which a parent considers rude, but which you never told the child they shouldn't have done. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And if they don't get spanked, they get quarreled at, they get ostracized because the child did something that the parent considers wrong, but the child was never told. And then the child does something today, and the parent doesn't do anything. As a matter of fact, when children are young, they do all kinds of rude things, which at that stage are cute things. And we laugh at them and we enjoy seeing the child do it. And then when they get older, it's not so cute anymore. And it becomes rude. And so the child gets punished for it. But when I was little, you didn't punish me for it. You thought it was cute. And of course, I want to be cute. I want to be laughed at again. And so I'm doing it now, and you're spanking me for it. See, your boundaries must be clear and consistent. And do not ever punish a child for doing something which they did not know beforehand was wrong. We've got to do that. So make the boundaries clear, make them consistent. If it's wrong today, it's wrong tomorrow. It's wrong next week, it's wrong next year. After a while, the child gets it, that I can trust my parent to be consistent. It's not about the thing the child does or doesn't do. It's about the confidence in the stability of my parent. And so I am learning to be just as stable and consistent. So we are teaching the children to be reliable, stable, and consistent people by the things that we do. You tell them don't lie, but the neighbor comes around and you didn't want to see the neighbor. Go and tell Wayne I'm not here. You know, what are you teaching the child? You're teaching the child to lie. You're teaching the child that lying is okay. But then the child tells you a lie later, and you spank the child. You're not supposed to tell lies. See, inconsistency, things like this. You can apply whatever you want to it. And as I mentioned, effective communication is key. You must communicate effectively with your child. Make sure they understand what you say. If you're setting up rules, if you're giving instructions, make sure they are clear. And even when the child may think they understand, it doesn't mean they understood what you wanted them to understand. Because sometimes we say something, having been a teacher myself, and some of your teachers right here, sometimes I see teachers, they say something and they teach and they say, "You understand?" to the whole class. And half of the class says, "Yes, miss," or "Yes, sir." And so we say the class understands. But half of the class didn't understand. And maybe that half of the class that understood, maybe only two or three of them really understood, because what some thought they understood was not what you intended them to understand. You see what I'm saying? So your communication has to be clear. And we have to learn proper communication skills. Positive reinforcement, I mentioned that before. And then role modeling, I also mentioned that too. We have to model what we want our children to become. Children learn more from seeing what you are than from hearing what you tell them to be. That's a truth for children, that's a truth for adults too. So let's remember that. They learn more by seeing what you are than hearing what you tell them to be.
Good on you, Don. Outstanding. I was just thinking that this topic really caters for everybody here. Some might not even be married. Some might be married and haven't had children yet. Some might have very young children. Some of us who are married have older children. And but no matter where we're at in our cycle, this topic's very important. And yes, outstandingly good. This next question is a very simple one, which is are fathers as essential as mothers?
That's a very important question, um, especially in a society like ours, where probably more than half of the parents are single parent families. More than half of the pop of the homes. I didn't check the exact figure, but I know a large percentage of homes in Jamaica are single parent families, and so it's a very important question. Usually, the single parent is the mother. I've met one, maybe two persons where the single parent was the father, but that's way the exception. Women usually, and in most families, whether single parent family or not, mothers tend to get probably all the credit, or 99% of it, for the happiness and health of their kids. But they also tend to shoulder all the blame for the happiness and health of their kids. So the question, are fathers as essential as mothers? I want to start by saying an emphatic yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. Research has shown that the love and care of fathers is equally important for the health and well being of children as the mother's love, at least equal. Children are way better off. I'm talking about research now, I'm not giving you my opinion. Children are way better off when their relationship with their father is sensitive, secure, and supportive, as well as close, nurturing, and warm. In general, children who have fathers that actively participate in their care and that interact with them are more likely to, number one, be smarter and more successful in school and work. Number two, they are far more likely to be happier than those who don't have fathers involved in their life. They are more likely to have more friends and better, more stable relationships, to have happier, healthier mothers. Their mothers will be happier and healthier when they have fathers who are involved in their lives. That should be a given, right? Which we probably never think about. They are less likely to get into trouble or to otherwise engage in risky and unsafe behavior. These are facts brought out by surveys and statistics. So it is an emphatic yes. Fathers are at least as essential as mothers for the bringing of children. So as much as possible, we should ensure that our children have a father and a mother.
Excellent. Thank you, Don. This next question, again, is one of those that no matter what stage you're at in the parenting experience is very relevant. For example, my own stage, I've got two girls, Lydia and Carla. One of them will be 38 this year, and the other 34. So I think, well, what are some of the ways in which I can improve my parenting skills, even still, to become a better or even the best parent?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Wayne, about your 38 and 34-year-old, because we never stop being parents. Once you have
Yeah.
children, we never stop being parents. My father died when I was way up in age, but he was always daddy to me. And I would always listen to his advice and instructions. And so you never really stop being a parent. So here are 10 competencies that usually predict um, good parenting outcomes. I'm just going to list them, 10 of them. Number one is love and affection. It kind of ties in with some of the things we said before. Showing love is the number one competency that predicts good, and it ties in a lot with one of the questions I answered before, of course. It includes showing unconditional love, which I spoke about before, support and acceptance. It also stresses the importance of spending one-on-one time with your child. So your 38-year-old Wayne would appreciate some one-on-one time still, I'm sure. So would your 34-year-old. And of course, so would their children, your grandchildren too, because you're a parent to your grandchildren. Um, so love and affection is very important to everybody, and it's a sign of a good parent. When you can see love, when your children can sense love, they know that they are loved, they're appreciated, then they consider you to be a good parent. That's number one. Number two, stress management. You can manage stress because raising children can be stressful. Tell me about it. Kerry had to stop for a little while there to go deal with her child. She managed her slightly stressful situation quite well. She had to stop, pay attention to her child, right? It's not only is it important for you to manage your own stress though, it's also important and critical for you to teach your child how to manage stress. And when your child can come to you in stressful situations and know that daddy or mommy will give me good advice to deal with this situation, then you are a better parent in their eyes. They can come to you. Growing up, I used to feel like my father knew everything there was to know in the world. I would go to him. There were 10 of us as children, and we felt like there was nothing daddy didn't know. So any question you have, go to daddy, and he'll give you a good answer. Um, it's good to know that you can go to your parents and have that resource available to you. And so even when I was an adult and even when I was teaching and preaching and doing different things, I would still go to him for opinions and advice about things. Though he was long retired and mostly very quiet in his bed or in a chair, I would still go to him because I saw him as a very wise person I could go to. When your children can see you as somebody, a resource person they can run to when they need help and advice, that's a very positive thing for you. Don't drive them away. Don't bother me now, child. I'm doing something. Check me later on. We get that from parents, don't we? Yes, we do. And so, where are you sending the child to? Who are you sending them to? No wonder that some of them go seek friends outside. And many times, the ones who want to be their friends are the ones who have some nice, bad little tricks to get them into. So be there for your children. Relationship skills, you got to teach them that too. Um, you yourself have to maintain healthy relationship skills with other people and teach them how to do that. You have to retain healthy relationship skills with your spouse, with your co-parent if don't have a spouse. But I'm not encouraging a spouse who you're not married to. But I know that those things exist sometimes. Your co-workers, your siblings, and anybody else who you have relationships with, friends. So teach them how to maintain good relationship skills. Autonomy, we talked about that earlier on, so I won't go over to it. Again, education and learning, teaching children to be lifelong learners. It's not about passing your grade 6 test. It's now called PEP, or your what's it, CSEC or GC examinations as it used to be. It's not about getting your bachelor's or your master's or your doctorate or anything like that. You have not achieved when you reach there. There are so many things to continue learning in life. So you've got to let your children understand that true education is a continuous lifelong learning experience. And you learn every day from things around you, from people around you, and you let them feel that it provides enrichment for them. You learn life skills, planning for the future, teach them budgeting, teach them how to save, teach them behavior management. um, then of course number 8, I told you there were 10, so I've been skimming through them. Number 8 is health. You model healthy lifestyle choices that include exercise and good nutrition. Let your children see that. Don't let them see daddy as a couch potato who just sits, he gets home, he sits and he reads a newspaper and then falls asleep, and that's it. Let them see daddy as somebody who values health, eating the right kind of thing, and so on. You are teaching them how to be adults, how to be responsible adults. Then religion. You support spiritual development and any kind of religious development. That's important. It's very important that we recognize that an individual is a composite being, which includes the spiritual aspect of you. Too much of the world focuses on the physical, and so we've got to help our children to understand that there's room for the spiritual too. And then, of course, you guarantee, number 10, you help to ensure that your child is safe. Teach them safe practices, set boundaries for them. We talked about that before. Being aware of their activity and their friends, and tactical skills, how to look out for things that are different, that may be threatening. Don't just walk with your phone in your hand down the street. Even things like that, you have to tell them. So you do everything from when they're babies, you baby-proof your home, allow them to be up and down, but you baby-proof the home by moving things out of the way that can harm them. You ensure that they wear helmets when they're riding bicycles, or their elbow guards and so on, and teach them how to cross the street smartly, and you teach them about sexual consent. All of this is involved in their safety. So that's number 10.
Thank you very much, Don. It's amazing how the subconscious works. As you were sharing about your father, it reminded me of a piece of advice my own father gave me a number of years ago when I was dating Nadia. And from the Middle Eastern side of things, there was a little bit of pressure on to take it further than that. So I hadn't spoken to Dad about it. So I went home. I was living 2 hours away. Went home and Dad said, how many other girls are you seeing? No, no one else, just the one. Oh, well, it seems to me as though you're already married. Just go ahead. Very simple advice. And here we are, let's see, in our 43rd year. So probably not too bad advice from Dad at that time. So I just want to reference with this final question, Don, one of the earlier questions, which was the fourth one, are fathers as essential to mothers? Because based on your answer to that question, the ideal situation is to have both parents involved in raising a child. However, some people are already raising a child as single parents, obviously for various reasons. But what is the best advice you can give to these single parents?
That's not so easy to answer. You're already not in an ideal situation. But so my first advice is not for those single parents. My first advice is for those who are not yet there. So if you're not there, if it is at all avoidable, don't go there. Do not put yourself in a single parent situation if you can at all prevent it. Sometimes it's not preventable. Sometimes circumstances get a hold on you. Sometimes it's death. Sorry to say that, but sometimes your partner dies, and sometimes the partner may get very sick, and so you're effectively a single parent. But apart from that, if you're not there, don't get there. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair. It's even worse, not fair to the child or the children you would be raising. That being said, if it has already happened, here are some of the things I would want to recommend. Number one, stay positive. One of the things that happens when you become a single parent is we begin to feel depressed and to feel sorry for ourselves. I have to be doing this all by myself. It's hard on me because it is stressful sometimes. And so you've got to be aware that your children will always be affected by your own mood and attitude. So try as much as possible to stay positive. They will need your praise, they're going to need your love. Where you would have had somebody to help with that, you don't have it, so you're going to have to be two parents in one. Um, it's it's okay to be honest about your feelings. If you're feeling sad sometimes and lost, it's okay, but be positive and let them know that better times are ahead. As a Christian, I would say God has this, and God is not going to let us be in this all the time, and where things are going to be better for us. Be positive. Think of positive ways to keep your children's spirits buoyed. Now, number two is find and accept support. Don't get this tough and rebellious attitude that I can do this by myself and I'm going to do this by myself and I don't need anybody. Don't try to handle everything by yourself. God didn't intend for the man or the woman to do this alone. He intended for there to be somebody there who would be complementary to you. Now, that person isn't there, but you still need some support. So it can be your family, your direct relatives, it can be friends if you have good friends. If the other parent maybe just not there with you, not living with you, not married to you anymore, if that parent is still accessible, you may try to maintain a respectful and reasonably amicable contact with that person, him or her. And where possible, as much as possible, allow the children to have regular interaction with him or her because they need both parents. You may not need that partner anymore, but your children still will end up better off with both parents in their lives. Number three, take time for your family. Family time. Whether you're a single parent or not, family time is important. And we need to be reminded of that, even we who are not single parents. Family time is important. Set aside time each day to spend with your children, especially if you're a single parent, that's even more important. Set aside time. Don't take home your work and be buried in your work at home while your children go and do your homework, go and watch TV, go and play with your tablet or your phone. I'm busy. I have this to do. Set aside time each day to spend with your children, even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Make it a point of duty. Some ideas that you can inculcate into it is reading a bedtime story for them, or at least making sure that you have your evening meal together while you talk. Cell phones are turned off while you're eating that meal. You push or put in another room. This is family time. This is for the two, you and your children. Your time is one of the most important things that you can give to your children. Not the toys you give them, not the phones you give them, not the tablets you give them. not the food you give them. Your time is one of the most important things you can give to them. Sit quietly with your children sometimes and allow them to talk. Listen to them. Let them talk about their feelings. If they're feeling sad or if they're feeling happy or something happened at school or whatever it is, let them talk to you and you listen for a while. A good listener is worth twice as much as a good speaker. That applies not just with your children, it applies in life. That's why we have two ears and one mouth. You listen more than you speak. Listening is far more valuable than speaking. Number six. Number four, take time for yourself. You've got to have some time for yourself because it's stressful, and we talk about it in other things too. Do some of the things that you like. It can't be just work, home, kids, and so on. You've got to do some of the you things. Some of it might involve the children, but sometimes it may be without them. So if you have somebody who can keep your children for short spells, it's not always possible. Not everybody wants to keep somebody else's kids, and then you can't even trust everybody with your children either. But if it's possible, sometimes, maybe for a little while, half an hour, 1 hour, you take a little spell by yourself to refresh yourself and to revive yourself. Not too frequently. Don't let your children feel that you're dumping them one side while you go and have fun. So, as I said, sometimes that refreshing time should be with the children. And also, take care of your health. Exercise regularly, eat healthy, get enough rest so that you can deal with the stress a little better. Number five, keep a daily routine. It's important that your children get accustomed to regularity of things. You have your scheduled meal times, you have chores, duties that the children have, bedtimes, regular times. All of these are important. Your children know what to expect each day. It's not, what should I do now, mommy? Or um, get up and do this now. It's that they have it scheduled and they know this is how we are doing it, this is how the home is run, and they get accustomed to routine. Keep things in set places that they know I can always find the milk at this location. I can always find the grill key or the door key at that location. Things are always consistent, and your children develop that consistency, that dependence of knowing that home is, there's a stability in my home. And finally, ties in again to something I said earlier, maintain consistent discipline. I don't have to go through that again.
Well, that's excellent, Don. Thank you very much. Just a wealth of knowledge and advice and information there, and I think it's going to be one of the great videos on the Families for Life channel for people to come back and review and refer to and so forth later on. So now it's time for opening up to everybody here this evening who would like to ask a question. Question, comments, feedback, anything you like for the next few minutes. You should have a little hand symbol on the console under all the images there on your phone or PC or tablet, and just push that. It'll raise the hand, and we'll know who to call on with a question or comment. There we go. There's a hand from a young lady named Erica. Go ahead, Erica.
Yes, Wayne. Thank you. I I listened and I'm thinking about my own, well, the situation I had a few years ago where I'm trying to balance my own life. I had my own children and I had my parents. Now that is a kind of complex situation. Trying to, monitor your kids, keeping your home stable. But at the same time, you have your parents demanding that attention. I can tell you that I was torn between my kids and my parents.
Yeah.
So just in case there are those who are experiencing that, how would you advise them to, keep your sanity and everything going because it was rough?
All right. Yes, indeed. That is a situation that can face us, and many times, many of us run into that kind of situation. And I think a lot of the advice that went before is what we ought to take. One of the key ones I would say is, well, two of the key ones I can think of that I would want to put in here are the first one in the last set of questions: stay positive, um, always think ahead, and for us who believe in God, recognize that God is not going to let this last forever. You know, one of the things that I developed when I was very young was this approach to problems, and I think God must have put it there in me, that I always think, no matter how bad, when I had pain or problems, I always felt this is not going to last forever. And just that thought was enough to help me to bear whatever it is that I was bearing. And that's the kind of positive thinking I think we need to take when we have problems. But a second one is find and accept support. Wherever we can get support, we need to get support. And because I happen to be personally involved with that you mentioned, Erica, um, you were able to get support from your own family here to some extent, so you didn't have to bear it alone. And then you've got to take time for yourself too. Um, do some of the things you like. One of the things about this situation is that you feel like you don't have any time to do anything for yourself. And sometimes you've got to force. This is probably something you didn't do enough. Since I can think of the situation, it's probably something you didn't do enough, or we didn't do enough, get you to have enough of that time for yourself to get away from it. So it's learning, the experience is learning for us too. And it's important that we recognize in any situation, in any stressful situation, whoever is there, you've got to remember to refresh and rebuild yourself. So I would say those are the key things I would suggest. Somebody else may have others to suggest too.
Thanks for that question, Erica, and excellent answer, Don. Ted was next. Go ahead, Ted.
Great. Thanks, Wayne. And thanks, Don, for your mention of the role of fathers in family. It's ever so important because we know that the world over has always downplayed the role of fathers and its significance of not really given a chance to come to the fore. Glad that you mentioned the statistics and findings that shows it clearly that the role of the father is very important to the family. Although we have a situation the world over, Wayne, where fathers usually disqualify themselves in a lot of instances. But thanks for the mention. Thanks for highlighting that. Okay.
And thank you also, Ted, for bringing that emphasis back in. It's very important. We've got Marlene next to share something or ask a question. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Good night, everyone. And I well, I think it's been a good session so far. I really just want to ditto everything that I've heard. And just to zero in specifically on the situation that Erica spoke about, having children, young children, and caring for your parents at the same time. Because, well, I think Don and Erica would have known when I was in that situation myself. And it was really very, very difficult. I mean, I had that situation among other situations that was going on. But I felt like I was dying, and I must have looked like I was dying because someone, she spoke with me one day and she said, "When you go home in the evenings, what do you do?" I said, "I basically head for the kitchen." She said, you don't reach your bedroom, don't it? I said, "No, I don't." And I just rest my bag on the table and I head straight to the kitchen. She said, "Well, I'm going to tell you something. Stop doing that. Go to your room, lie on your back. If it's even 20 minutes, don't even talk to anybody. Who see you, but just go to your room and lie down on your back before you do anything else." And let me tell you something, I think that saved my life. So the self-care that Don spoke about, and I think, well, others, It's absolutely, absolutely important. No, I really can underscore the importance of taking some time for yourself, because you're of no use to anybody else when you pop down and you can't manage yourself, much more to manage anybody else.
Yes, no, very, very good. And yes, really good reminder. Thank you very much. So true, as Pamela said. Okay, Don, it's been a testament to the presentation tonight that we're not inundated with questions at this time. Very thorough indeed, and very, very impressive. I can't wait to review those things myself. So thanks everybody for being with us this evening. Been a blessing for me, even if it was a half as much a blessing for you. Then I know it was great. So thank you very much.